Well, welcome this morning, Trinity Church. Welcome to our adult forum here, and I welcome you. And today we have the great pleasure of being with the Reverend Oscar Rozo, who is the diocesan priest for ministry with Hispanic communities in our diocese. And I am actually meeting Oscar for the first time. And so welcome, Oscar. Welcome to Trinity Church.
Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you for providing this opportunity to just learn a little bit more about Trinity and learn a little bit more of myself and the Latino ministry in our diocese. And blessings and much love to everybody at Trinity.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you your own personal history, you grew up and lived, and how and when you came to Western North Carolina.
Definitely. So I was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. I'm the oldest of three old brothers, and my family, Roman Catholic, the kind of family that went to church every Sunday, and yeah, just really eager to teach us about God's love and respect for others and God's creation. And probably around the age of 18, 19, I had the opportunity to come to the United States and visit family in Madison, Wisconsin. One of my father's sister lives in Madison. And so I came to visit, learn the language. Just like in the United States, we in school we have second language and so on. I
Sure.
took English for many years, but I never paid attention to it, thinking that I would never use it. And I'm sure God was laughing at me at some point. Anyway, moving to the United States, and my aunt at the time was going to the Episcopal Church, and she invited me, knowing that I had a call to ministry, knowing that I was spiritual and then focused on religious life. She invited me to the Episcopal Church in Madison, and I remember the first time coming to the church, beautiful building, stained glass windows, so similar the spirit to the Roman Catholic building. And, the priests were in their the vestments and so on. And except that as I came close to the altar, I noticed that the priest had long hair and earrings. And I was just really curious about what was happening in this church. And as soon as the priest began to speak to begin the service, the pitch of the voice of this priest was way high. And I had this realization that it wasn't a man, but a woman. And it was one of the most beautiful moments that I experienced in my religious and spiritual life, realizing that there is a church where men and women are ordained. And so I got connected with this priest. She became my mentor, Reverend Pat Size in Madison, and that took me later on to seminary, Virginia Theological Seminary, and so probably around 2009, I went to seminary after going to college in Wisconsin, and the funny thing is that, again, coming from South America, my understanding of seminary is really monastic. I was thinking of and
Right.
hoping that seminary was a space for you to be silent and pray and be a monk. But that's not the case on most seminaries in the United States, especially
Not at
VTS. It feels
not at
much like
Virginia, not at Virginia Seminary.
oh, it feels like college, just a big community of people who love God and love each other and want to follow the teachings
Yeah.
of love of that Christ provides us. And so in the midst of being part of that community, I met Elizabeth Tester, who came from the Diocese of Western North Carolina. So she grew up
Right.
here. Her father was a deacon for many years. Her mother is a priest, and her grandfather was a priest in this diocese, actually. So we met, fell in love at the probably 2013, June 1st, we got married, actually in Hickory at
Ah.
Ascension.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
and anyway, so we got married, we moved to Wisconsin, and then coming back probably last year, um, there was this opportunity to do Latino ministry in the diocese. And while having conversations with Bishop Jose, he invited us to move this way. And August 2020, we moved with our two children, Ezekiel, who is 3, and Miriam, who is 1 year old, and our four-legged son Amos, and our four-legged cat Bathsheba. We got our car. We moved all the way to North Carolina, and right now we are in Lincolnton, North
Okay.
Carolina.
All right.
So that's a lot of
Well,
me.
yeah, no, that's a great story. And so you live in Lincolnton, and you are formally on the diocesan staff, isn't that correct?
That's right.
Yeah,
So when I was offered the job, I was asked to come and work for the diocese in regards of Latino and Hispanic ministry.
yeah. Well, wonderful. Well, then, um, tell us about Hispanic ministry in the diocese. What's going on? Where is it going on? What's exciting about it um, for you and for us?
So since early 2000s, the diocese began a Latino ministry in Hendersonville, which is known nowadays as La Capilla de Santa Maria or St. Mary's Chapel.
Right.
From there, we invited our first Latino missioner in early 2000s, Father Hilario Cisneros,
Right.
and he came for probably 5 to 7 years, and he not only grew that community, but he developed many relationships in Spruce Pine and Marion. Um, so we began a ministry in Marion at St. John's. We began a ministry at Trinity in Spruce Pine. Now, noticing that there was a potential for ministry and a huge growth everywhere, uh, Father Hilario talked to the bishop at the time, and they invited Father Miguel Alvarez to join us and do Latino ministry as well. And at that time, Father Hilario Cisneros took La Capilla in Hendersonville, and then I believe Father Miguel began to work in Morganton. I'm sorry, Marion and Spruce Pine. Later on in Spruce Pine, they began another ministry in Newland, and then the ministry that we had in Marion moved towards Morganton. Um, Father Hilario Cisneros unfortunately moved back to the diocese where he came from, which is Diocese of Nevada. And at that time, Bishop Jose invited me to come and join them. So right now we have 4 ministries. We have La Capilla, as I mentioned, Hendersonville. We have Latino ministry at St. Stephen's and St. Mary's in Morganton. And then we have a Latino ministry at Trinity Episcopal Church in Spruce Pine. And we have our fourth one is in the city of Newland, and that's an Episcopal and Lutheran ministry, the Savior Church. And so part of my job is to work with all these parishes, get to know the needs, and empower lay leaders to have answered the call to ministry, either as a lay individual or as an ordained person. And aside from those ministries, one of the visions that Bishop Jose has is to develop a multicultural ministry and a multicultural center in Newton, North Carolina, at Epiphany Episcopal Church of the Epiphany. So I'm the priest in charge at that parish, and we are beginning to develop a strategy plan to transform that church into a multicultural center where we invite everybody and we get to learn from each other and see where God is calling us. And not only just Latino ministry, not only those of us who speak Spanish, but any other minority who is interested in learning about God, learning about themselves, and working together as the beloved community. With that as well, one of my hopes is to begin to connect with all the parishes in the diocese who are interested on Latino ministry or ministry outside of the parish, and find ways to work together, create strategy plans to again just build relationships outside in the community and meet Jesus out there in the stranger and our neighbor.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of ministry, Oscar.
It's a lot of
Um,
work. So
yeah,
uh,
that's a lot of
yeah.
work. What takes up most of your time?
um, what takes most of my time? So that's a good question. These days, because we're in the middle of the pandemic and everything is digital, part of what I'm doing these days is to create a Wednesday evening bilingual service. It's a really small service. It's bilingual prayer. So we begin with some of the prayers that we have in the compline service. Then we have a meditation. And then we end with one of the prayers that we have either on compline or the New Zealand Book of Common Prayer, and all that is on YouTube and Facebook, and most of the time, sometimes we have it on the diocesan website as well. And the hope with that those videos is to not only to hear my voice, but I really encourage clergy and lay who want to create a meditation focus on the gospel for the next Sunday to just give that message of hope and love that we so much need during these difficult times. So, as a matter of fact, there's an invitation for you, Scott, David, and anybody else or the lay members in your parish who would like to maybe create a meditation, a short meditation for us. Please do contact me because we would love to
Wonderful.
hear your voice and we would love to hear your own
Yeah,
experience of that in your own life.
yeah, would love to. Would love to. Help
Definitely. So
us.
that takes.
No, go ahead.
Well, you were asking, what takes most of the time. So those videos, preparing liturgy for Sundays and connecting, building relationships around the diocese is
Yeah.
definitely taking time. And along with that, changing diapers. As I said, we have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and just seeing them grow and just learning their personality and who they are becoming. It's just been wonderful experience, and it does take time to spend time with
Of
them.
course.
But I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Uh, one of the question I want to ask is, I might not get it exact, I might not articulate it exactly the question I want, but it goes something like this, Oscar. Help us, and when I say us, it would not be a secret to say that there aren't that many, if any, native Spanish speakers in our parish. I think there may be some, but um, help us understand who is the Latino individual in our diocese who is coming to one of our congregations. Tell us about the challenges in their lives, the perspective in their lives. You said you're from Bogota. Is there an area of the world in which is more a greater community than others? Just help us experience the ministry in a general way, and the life experience. Really, what are the joys, but also the challenges that come.
Mhm. So the general Latino that we encounter in our diocese, in our parishes, are people that come from a culture that value community.
Mm,
From people who come from Argentina all the way to Mexico. Um, we all, our culture, Latino Hispanic culture, is a culture that really values family and really values that sense of community. So much so that when I came to the Episcopal Church as a Latino, as a 19-year-old kid, um, that church made it was inspiring to be part of that church because I had a family away from my own home. I had
yeah,
people who really was interested about me and who really wanted to connect with me and love me as I am. Um, so that's I think it's important to begin with that. There are
yes,
people who really want to be a sense of community, people that and that's regardless of language. I think sometimes we get so
sure,
worried about I don't speak Spanish or my priest doesn't speak Spanish. Uh,
sure,
but that the language of love, the language of God transcends all languages,
yeah,
and we have to be really mindful of that. When I was in Wisconsin, this priest that I mentioned, Pat Size, she knew a little bit of Spanish, but the amazing thing that she was really good at was just building relationships. Just think about what brought you to church, or what is it that caused you to come to church, and most of the time it's just a community of love that surrounds you, that is welcoming, that is there for you in the good times and the hard times. So it's so similar. It's, in many ways, it's extremely similar to Latinos. Um, the challenges and struggles, I think is, for me or for Latinos in general, is trying to understand sometimes the culture. We come from a whole different culture into a place that we don't know, the systems within that culture. um, I mean, of course, the language. um, but I think, by building those relationships, by understanding what are his or her needs, and for us helping them understand what are our needs, I think we can build communities and we can help each other to grow and experience God in the midst of our common journeys.
Yeah.
um I wonder if that answers somewhat the question.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Um, I think one of the things that's one of the ways in which uh, God has worked in my own life is that when I was in seminary, I won't tell you how many years ago it was now, but my own my own bishop in a summertime um, told me that I was going to the Dominican Republic to live for a while, and so I went to the Dominican Republic for the very first time in my life, really kind of outside the country for any long long experience of time in a completely different setting and in a completely different language, not knowing anything about the language, and really for the first time feeling that I was in, I mean, what shall one say, another country. I mean, just all alone amidst a whole bunch of people, but still kind of almost all alone. And I'll never forget that. And I guess what I'm getting at is that when I think of Latino communities here in the United States, those feelings well up in me, and what that might feel like for communities that um, initially, their native language is not English, and on top of that layer is, on my paternal side is basically Portuguese immigrants who also spent most of their time in early days in the United States, not knowing the language as well. And so, um, I'm always looking for uh, to honor that in a way and kind of help people learn what that might be like and what that might feel like. And I don't know if you would say what you would, how you would add to that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, when you come to a whole different country, not only the language but the culture and the systems are so different, and you feel lonely, and but I think that's why church, and especially within the Episcopal Church, we can make such a huge impact on immigrants, regardless of where they come from or regardless of the language. Because I mean, and it's just such a basic human need to feel
Yeah.
loved, to feel that, regardless where you come from, you're welcomed. Um, and so I'm wondering, as an American in Puerto Rico, although Puerto Rico is part of the United States, um, what were the things that connect you to them?
Hmm.
I'm curious, and see if there are any common elements within, as me as a immigrant, as a Latino.
Yeah. No, great question. Actually, it was the Dominican Republic, but um, yeah, no, I was there as a seminarian with the Episcopal Church in the Dominican Republic. So there was a lot of commonality, of course. There was a lot of, you know, common activity and common uh, liturgy. I mean, even though I didn't understand the language, I could fit could fit could fit right in. Um, especially in the liturgy, and so uh, that was comforting for sure. It was one of the most comforting aspects about about being there. So yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So in that regard, as you mentioned, it, liturgy is a great connection, especially with Latino culture. Many of us grew up in the Roman Catholic Church, and the liturgy is exactly the same.
Right.
Of course, we have different language. Maybe the music is, you have that African Latino flavor to it,
Hmm.
um, which is really important in regards to Latino ministry. If you want to bring Latinos into your parish, it's important to have music that is vibrant, that is Latino,
Yeah.
guitars, drums, shakers, and so on. But also food, and that's one of the things that brings Latinos and brought me a lot to that parish in Madison. It's just the diversity of flavors and foods. Again, people from Argentina all the way to Mexico, just so different, and yet we come together to a common table where we all are equal, where we all are loved, regardless of how good or how bad we are. Those elements, even though the journey is so lonely sometimes as an immigrant, as we feel lonely in places that they are so unknown. In the midst of all that, we encounter God, and we encounter a call to love one another and to walk this journey together. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to you would want to be sure we know about? I think it's fair to say over the past number of years in our nation, there's been lots of conversation about immigration, how much there should be, how much there shouldn't be, what's the dynamics. Is there anything you would want to enlighten us about how that impacts the Latino community? Something that might help us understand.
Definitely. Um, I think in regards of immigration to the United States, people don't come to the United States to take advantage of the system. Um, People come because the places where they come from, it's just hell. It's extremely difficult. Nations that are extremely corrupt and violent, and they just like anybody would like to the best for their families, and most of the cases, if not all, people that move from one country to another, especially to the United States, are people who are ready to work hard and to make a change, a good change for the community, not just themselves, but the community in their own families and the people around them. Extremely hard workers, and you know, especially because in regards of immigration, we're so fearful. We don't know that other individual. Sometimes we just pay attention to the fear and we let that fear control us. It's so easy to be divided and so easy to hate the other. But I think in those moments of fear, we definitely need to just come to go to the local Latino market, go to you know that person who is different than you, and get to know each other, because in the midst of all that, God is there, and there are so many commonalities that can bring us together and can help us work together. I will also say that in regards of Latino ministry in our diocese, I'm looking for people who could help us, who are really good at fundraising, who could help us raise money for college. So Latino
Hmm.
students who want to go to college and be educated, but also Latino ministry in general to empower our Latinos, so people who are really good at fundraising. And the other element that I would like to invite you all is that if you want to be part of a committee that goes around the diocese and get to know what are the major needs within Anglo churches who want to start Latino ministry. I'm looking for people who would like to volunteer a portion of their time
Wonderful.
and would love to work with me and help us to just go out to the communities and learn more, not only about Latino ministry, but just God in general, in the diversity of languages and cultures that we have, all around us. Um, if you're interested in this kind of work, if you have a passion, if you have a sense of call, reach out, because I'm eager to work with the whole diocese if needed.
Outstanding. I just want to note, as you were talking about um, uh, the immigration piece, I think it's important always when this topic comes up is that we have a history in our nation of this same thing. Even individuals coming from Europe back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. The Irish community, Italian community, and Portuguese community, which this is exactly why they came, to add to, yes, because where they were was very difficult, but when they came, they wanted to raise families and contribute and pay taxes and enjoy life and contribute. So I appreciate you saying that the Latino community isn't any different than any other community that immigrated and added to and has been a blessing to part of our out of many one motto as the United States of America. So thank you for that. Um, well, thank you for the invitation. And I know that people will let me know if they want to get in touch, and I'll pass on the contact information as well.
Excellent.
And I suppose people could get in touch with you at the diocese as well, right?
They can contact me directly at the diocese. Feel free to call me directly my phone, 608-347-8427. If you want to reach out by email, I'll give those not the email address with you so you can pass that along as well. But yeah, I'm here to walk together on this beautiful diocese, to grow together and find God in the most unknown corners of this diocese. So just join in
Yeah.
and let us work together. Definitely.
Before we conclude, I wonder if you can let me know what is the Latino population in our diet. I mean, just in general, uh, is it a large population? Is it centered in certain, basically where some of the ministries are that or is it just
It,
kind of everywhere?
I don't have the numbers with me, but it's everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look around your neighborhood, if you have one or two Latino markets or restaurants, that's just
Yeah.
an example of how big the Latino population is in North Carolina. So much so that back in the early 2000s, when the diocese said, we have the need for Latino ministry, they realized that the Latino community in North Carolina is growing exponentially, and even today this is one of the states where the Latino community is growing exponentially. So the potential for Latino ministry is huge and is out there. And even if it is just not Latino ministry, even if it is minority ministry, uh, I serve in the city of Newton here in North Carolina at Epiphany, and along with the Latino community that is large, we have monk community. We never know who is out there and who is in need of a community of faith and love that are ready there to support them and love them. So, but yeah, in regards, especially of Latino ministry, it's huge. The numbers are big, and there is a big need for us to open our doors to our brothers and sisters in the Latino community.
Well, we remember the words of Jesus who said, welcome one another as I have welcomed you, and that's our call as his disciples. So this has been great,
Amen.
my new amigo. Muchas gracias. Thank you
Muchísimas
so much.
gracias.
Yes, thank you so much for being with us today, and I look forward to meeting you in person and maybe getting you here to be with us at Trinity in person when the whole COVID has passed us.
God willing soon. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you,
God bless you.
David, everybody.
All right. Take care and God bless.